Thank you to all my channel members, including my fan appreciation level members and my contributor level members, for helping support the YouTube channel.
Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have my ranking of every single adult Star Wars novel in the Expanded Universe Legends timeline. Yes, I have been working to read every single EU novel over the course of the last 10 years. It has been a long process to get here, but we're finally here. I have a review for a lot of the books that I'm going to talk about on the channel. Not every book, because, in fact, I would say over half the books I read before I even started the channel, and I'm not going back to reread at the moment. So if you can't find the book on the channel, that's because I talked about it before I started the channel. But for a lot of these, I do have book reviews on the channel. And so in this video, I am going to be doing a ranking of every single book. I'm going to go through from the worst to the best, talk about all 157 adult books. But I have a list of caveats that I need to have before we start the video, because this will frame what our discussion will be. First of all, this is my personal list. This will not be any other individual on Earth's list. There is not a single person whose list will match with mine. That's okay. This is just me telling you how I feel, where I'd put the books. So this is just my list. Your list is going to be different. That's okay. My second caveat is that my ranking is based off of enjoyability to me. This is not based off of literary quality necessarily, although there are certain books that I think have literary quality, and to me they stack up well, but this is not about how Star Warsy the book is, how faithful it is to the vision of George Lucas, or talking about, oh, this is the book that is objectively the best book in the series. So that's not what I'm going for with this. I'm talking about the books that I enjoyed the most versus the books I enjoyed the least. And so that's what this ranking video is about. My third caveat is, yes, this will have 157 books in it. These are all of the adult books released by both Bantam when they were publishing in the 90s, and then Del Rey when they were publishing in the 2000s and early 2010s. This will not include any of the Young Jedi Knights books, the junior books, the middle grade novels, the chapter books, the kids books. This is not talking about anything else but the adult Star Wars novels. I am actually currently, now that I've finished the adult books, planning to go read the kids books next. I'm working through some of those series, like the Boba Fett series and the Young Jedi Knights series and stuff like that. But for right now, I'm just focusing on talking about the 157 released books in the adult timeline. And if you want to find that timeline, you can just look up the EU Legends timeline, the one from Del Rey. You will probably find it. It has 157 titles. Some of them are grouped together, like the Lando Calrissian adventures and the Han Solo adventures, and you have the novelizations on there as well. But it's 157 books because I had to count so many times to figure this out. My fourth caveat is, you probably notice from the way I'm talking, I'm getting over a cold. I had a really bad cold last week. This week I'm in the recovery stages. I feel great, but my voice and my nasal are not to where sound-wise I would wish them to be, but because of things going on with the holidays, I have to record this now or it's going to not happen for quite a while. So that's why I'm recording this. You may see me duck out to drink something or something. I'm going to try to edit anything like that out. I might have some coughs interspersed here and there. I'm going to try to edit those out, but they may not work out that way. We'll see what happens. So just bear with me on that stuff. I'm sorry that I'm sick. My fifth caveat is that I've been reading this series of EU books for over 10 years. And some of these books, it's been 9 or 10 years since I read them. So I'm not going to remember everything well. Some of these books I'm not going to have as much to say about. And so I'm sorry if you're like, man, I wanted you to talk in depth about this book. I can't do that when I'm talking about 157 books. I'm sorry. My sixth caveat is that I want you to know that my top 15 and my bottom 15 on this list are pretty secure. I'm pretty solid saying these are the top 15, these are the bottom 15, like they're not moving around. I spent a lot of time figuring those out. Everything in between those, the 127 books in between, there's some room for movement. What I did is I grouped into several categories. I grouped into categories such as my 1 to 2 stars list, which is my not good at all list. I also have books in the 3-star list, which is the, I mean, it's all right. And then I have some books that I categorized in the 4-star list. These are the good books, not necessarily great books. And this is going to be the biggest section of the list. And then I have the 4.5 out of 5. Ooh, so great, so great. Most excellent. Not the best, though. And then we have at the top, or the top tier, the all-timers, 5 out of 5 stars. So I split them up into those categories. And so I'm going to record this in those bits, and I'm going to talk about them through, and I'll probably put timestamps through based off of where, what section of the video, if I'm talking about the 1 to 2 stars, the 3 stars, the 4 stars, things like that. And as such, within the 3-star range, a handful of the books, an argument could be made to move them up a few spots, move them down a few spots. But I generally feel these are books in the 3-star range. These are books in the 4-star range. These are books in the 1 or 2-star range. And so that's why I've put them in that category. And then I've tried my best to figure out where they go. But especially in the middle, there's a lot of wiggle room that an argument could be made that they could move a bit. So just wanted you guys to know about that. My 7th caveat is that there are some authors I enjoy than others. There's one author in particular I know for a fact everyone's going to be on me for not putting much higher on the list. None of his books make it particularly high. And that's just because I just don't enjoy that author's writing style as much. And there's one author on here that I know that I have takes up so much of the top of the list, and everyone is going to be like, why is that author at the top? They're not even near at the top. So there's going to be people who, there's going to be authors that you love that I don't. And it's not personal. It's just, this is where they ended up, their enjoyability for me ended up on the list. So that's my 7th caveat. My 8th caveat is please have fun in the comments. I'm sure you can drag me for my placements and stuff. Please be kind to the others. Also, if there's people who talk about things they love in the canon, please be at least courteous to them. I know that a lot of people in the EU have strong feelings about the canon. I have some strong feelings myself. But let's just be courteous in the comments. My 9th caveat is that because this is going to be so long, this video is probably going to be around 2 hours long. It might be less, it might be more. I don't know. We're going to find out. But because it's going to be a long video, I just can't spend too long on each book. I can't fully book review each book. Maybe that'll be another video one day. Woo. No, but this is just going to be a short little quick, this is how I felt about it. If you've ever watched the book reviewer Brian Lee Durfee and watched his ranking videos, that's about what you can expect this to be. Nice and quick. My number 10 and my final caveat is that I will try to put some vague timestamps, but I'm not going to put a timestamp for each book, because that would be ridiculous, but I might for the different sections. So those are my caveats, talking about what I'm going to be talking about with the book, with this book ranking. There's a lot to get to here. I know that you're here for the ranking itself. So I'm going to start at the bottom and move my way to the top. So a lot of the beginning of this video is going to be salty, Jonathan, because I'm going to be talking about books I disliked. But once we get further on, I'm going to start talking about books that I did enjoy. So just note, that's coming. I just have to get through the ones I didn't enjoy first. So that's just the way a ranking video goes, especially when you have one that's 157 books. So we're going to start with my bottom tier, which is my 1 to 2 star reads. Not good at all. And I have, I believe, 30 books to talk about here. So I have on my computer screen here, I have what number the book is so that I don't get lost when I'm talking about them. And I also have them in the order that I'm going to talk about. So if you see me looking at my computer screen over here, that's why. I have my stack of books here. With that being said, let's get into it with the worst book on the list. Number 157 is going to be The Crystal Star by Vonda M. and McIntyre. Oh man. Vonda McIntyre can write good books because her Star Trek stuff that I've read is great. But she is not a Star Wars author. She did not fully understand what Star Wars was when she wrote this. It does not fit in Star Wars. It does not write. None of the characters, none of the themes, none of the world building feels right. This is a fish out of water book. This is a book that just was so weird and does not work on any level. And it's one of the few times I've actually given a Star Wars book a flat 1 star. Usually there's something redeemable about the book. There's really nothing, really. Maybe the Jason and Jaina stuff, but even then, I can't really give this any props. So yeah, this is, in my opinion, the bottom Star Wars novel, the worst Star Wars novel, number 157. Number 156 is going to go to Children of the Jedi by Barbara Hambly. I know that my friend Dan, Star Wars Centralized, is going to be so disappointed to see this so low on the list, but Barbara Hambly is also, much like Vonda McIntyre, an author that just, I think, didn't really understand the assignment. She didn't really get Star Wars. This book is so weird. It's such a weird book. And it takes, I can at least give it credit for taking some big swings, but none of them worked. It is such a bizarre book. It introduces the Callista. This is like the first book unofficially in the Callista trilogy, but man, do I not like this book. And this was one of my reads this year, and I was like, ah, man, I saved that towards the end. I should not have done that. Because I knew what it was going to be about, and I was just like, I'm not sure I'm not going to enjoy it, and I was right. So that is number 156. Number 155 on the list is another Barbara Hambly book, and that is Planet of Twilight. The best thing this book's got going for it is at least it's not as bad as Children of the Jedi. I think that Leia's handled a modicum of degree better in this book than she was handled in Children of the Jedi, but that's about it I can say. I really don't have much positive to say about this book either. The trilogy ends and begins very poorly. It's an unofficial trilogy, so when you look on it on a timeline, it's not going to officially say it. The middle book in the trilogy is not written by Barbara Hambly. It's Darksaber by Kevin Anderson, which we'll talk about later. It's a much better book. And but yeah, Planet of Twilight, another swing and a miss from Barbara Hambly. So that's number 155. All right, I'm going to talk about 3 books together now. I'm going to talk about my number 154, 153, and my number 152 because they're all in the same bind-up and I all feel the same way about them, and that is the Lando Calrissian Adventures, including The Mind Harp of Sharu, The Flame Wind of Ocean, and The Star Cave at Thonbaka. Now, when this came out, there were not a lot of Star Wars books. You had the Han Solo Adventures by Brian Daley, the 3 books, short books there, and you had Splinter of the Mind's Eye. So we didn't have a ton of Star Wars literature at the time when this released, and so there wasn't that established, writing style for Star Wars. And so I understand why L. Neil Smith took the risks that he did in this book. But to me, it did not work because his writing style feels like 60s and 70s science fiction novel, not Star Wars. It has Lando in it. It has the Millennium Falcon in it. But it doesn't feel like Star Wars in any way. It feels like a weird trippy science fiction book. And the first book I thought was the best of the 3, but man, the 3 books here I thought were not great. So I did not enjoy the Lando Calrissian Adventures near as much as I wanted to enjoy them. And so that's why they rank at numbers 154, 153, and 152 on my list. At number 151 comes, in my opinion, the worst short fiction collection out there for the EU, and that is Tales from the New Republic. This is a very misleading title. because almost none of the tales are from the era of the New Republic. This should have been Tales from the Rebellion, because this majority of the stories are about the rebellion against the Empire, or they're stories about the Empire itself. They're not actually stories about the New Rebellion, or New Republic. But even setting aside that complaint, none of the stories in here broke through. There is some of these short story collections, they bring in like an author to anchor it. And in this case, and in another case, they brought in Mike Stackpole and Tim Zahn to kind of anchor this. And the rest of the stories from this collection are taken from, I think, the Adventure Journal for the most part. And unfortunately, the anchor story isn't even good, and then the rest of the stories weren't even good, and so I didn't enjoy any of this book, and it was really sad because I'm a big fan of Tim Zahn and Mike Stackpole, as you'll find out later on here, but their short fiction just didn't work for me, especially here. So that's why the Tales from the New Republic is at number 151. At number 150 is a book a lot of people forget exists. A lot of people don't even remember that this book came out because I think they just blocked it out of their mind. But it exists. It's on the timeline. It's one of the adult novels. It's released by Del Rey. And that is Star Wars: The Clone Wars movie novelization. I am one of the few people who loved the Clone Wars movie. In fact, after reading this book, I went back and rewatched the movie. And you know what? I still love it. The movie came out when I was 8 years old. It's the first movie I saw in theaters, like in the theaters for the first time as a Star Wars movie. I later on would see the Force Awakens opening night, and that was my first opening night for Star Wars. And then I also saw the 3D version of Phantom Menace when it came to theaters. But this was the first movie I saw in theaters, and the first Star Wars movie I saw in theaters, and I loved it, and I still do. And I understand the criticism everyone has of it. I still love the movie. But Karen Traviss, what the crap were you thinking with this book? This book is barely a novelization of the movie. In fact, it is like so barely a novelization of the movie that calling it a novelization is generous, because Karen decides about midway through the book to just abandon the main plot of the book and just focus on the clones. Now, Karen Traviss cares about the clones in a lot of her books, and that's, laudable. But she just abandons the storytelling structure that the movie established and goes off and does her own thing. The characters do not feel like their movie counterparts. The dialogue doesn't. The story of the clones feels very different. The stuff with Rex in this book is very off. And as a novelization, it does the things I don't want it to do. You're supposed to adapt the movie and add to it. This book doesn't adapt. Entire scenes out of the movie are not in this book. Entire scenes. It's not like, oh, there's a line of dialogue that they flubbed. That would have been acceptable. No, there are entire scenes that, like, if you read this book without watching the movie, you would be lost. Because there's an entire subplot that is completely lost. Anyway, I'm ranting about this book. But this is number 151. 150, The Clone Wars novelization by Karen Traviss. Oh, I'm so ticked off about that book, because it should have been better. The other books were worse books that I talked about, but that one is one that it should have been a top tier book, and it wasn't. So all right, we're getting into the top 149, number 149. Now this is an author that he writes some great books, and he's also written a great video game. And he wrote a tie-in to that great video game, and it did not work at all, and that is Star Wars: The Old Republic Revan. This book takes place after the events of KOTOR, before the events of KOTOR 2, and I understand there were limitations on what he could do. I understand that there were the goals of where Lucasfilm wanted the character to go, and where the video game developers wanted him to go, and where Drew Karpyshyn wanted him to go. But this book is not a good Revan book, and it's just not a satisfying book. This book makes decisions that are bound to make the audience frustrated. And, There's another Star Wars writer and filmmaker who came in and did that, and people hated him for it, but they don't really hate Drew Karpyshyn for this. But there are story decisions that you know are going to go over poorly with the fan base and with the readership. And yet Drew Karpyshyn still made those decisions. And this is a book that I just don't understand how it happened. But yeah, that's my number 149. Number 148 comes the third book in the Michael Q.B. McDowell Black Fleet Crisis, and that would be Tyrant's Test. I was very unimpressed by the whole Black Fleet Crisis as a whole, but this book actually made me mad because it felt like it legitimately misunderstood the character of Luke. And there's decisions that he makes in this book that just made me so frustrated when I read it. And also, I thought that the book itself was boring, as really the whole trilogy was, but this book in particular was the worst of the three. And so, between mangling the character of Luke and also being an extremely boring book, this goes in at number 148. Now we're to my top 147. We have Star Wars X-Wing Mercy Kill. This is probably one of my more recent reads. And this is the penultimate book in the timeline. It is the final X-Wing novel, and I was so disappointed in this book. So immensely disappointed. This is a book that really is not about X-Wings. It's really not even about the X-Wing characters. A handful of the X-Wing characters from the Wraith Squadron books show up, and the main character is Piggy from the books. But outside of that, it is very much a new cast, a new crew, a new storyline that doesn't really tell any story that's particularly exciting. It feels like it's just another adventure. It feels like, hey, we need a book to fill. Aaron Alston, why don't you write another X-Wing book? Because those were pretty popular back in the day. And it just is infuriating. It does not feel like it lives up to the promise of what X-Wing actually is. And I did not like X-Wing Mercy Kill. Or as I told my friends, X-Wing Mercy, kill me now. All right. Let's see. That was my number 147. All right. I warned you that there were some ones on here that would make people mad. Well, this author being this low is going to make some people mad, because my number 146 is going to be Shatterpoint by Matthew Stover. The Star Wars fandom loves Matthew Stover. They put him on such a pedestal with all of his books. And I only liked one of his books, and I didn't even like it that much. So I'm sorry if you loved Matthew Stover, that's great for you, but I'm sorry I do not. And I remember reading Shatterpoint in high school and being so frustrated that it says a Clone Wars novel over the top. And there are barely any clones, barely any droids, and barely any wars in this book. The majority of this book is Mace Windu trekking through a jungle trying to find his former apprentice, Deba Billaba. And man, is it boring. And the best part of this book is the concept of the Shatterpoint itself, that it's like a character's breaking point. And even that is not that good of a perspective for a book. So I'm sorry, I did not care for Shatterpoint. And I am sorry that I'm going to inevitably tick off the Stover fans. But that's where that goes. I'm probably, when you're looking at the dip of people stopping the video, this is probably going to be the most serious dip. Well, except for another Stover that I'll talk about later. So that's my number 146. My number 145 is going to be the third book in the Bounty Hunter Wars trilogy, titled Hard Merchandise. The Bounty Hunter Wars was such an uneven trilogy. The first book I thought was great. The second book had its moments, but it was oddly paced. The third book is largely forgettable, and what little I remember about it, it was so boring. And that's the greatest sin for Star Wars, in my opinion, is to tell a boring story. You have such a great landscape, such a great opportunity for great stories, and you're telling a boring story? Like, you don't have to write the most literary, most amazing story. You don't have to write the story that's got the most, foreshadowing. You just have to write something that's entertaining in the moment. This book was not entertaining in the moment, and I've given it, I read this like 6 years ago, and it's not grown on me at all. In fact, it's actually lessened in my opinion. So that's my number 145. Number 144 is actually a really painful placement for me because I love this author's work outside of Star Wars, and that's going to be The Courtship of Princess Leia by Dave Wolverton. Some people know him as David Farland, which he wrote his fantasy novels under. He wrote one of my favorite fantasy series, which is The Rune Lords. He wrote one of my favorite science fiction series, the Golden Queen trilogy. So David Farland, or Dave Wolverton, writes amazing books. And The Courtship of Princess Leia is not an amazing book. The choices here just confound me. Leia does not make decisions in the way that Leia would make decisions. Han does not make decisions in the way that Han would make decisions. Even Mon Mothma makes some decisions at the beginning of the book that were just so bizarre to me. The only character who nominally seems interesting in this book is Luke, and he's not even that particularly well written or that well done. But man, this book was supposed to be a big explosive standalone that was going to sell a lot of copies, was going to rejuvenate, bring in female audiences as well, and it just doesn't work that well for me, I'm sorry to say. And that's why it's my number 144. And I've had people ask, which one do you like better, Courtship of Princess Leia or The Princess and the Scoundrel from the canon? By default, it's Princess and the Scoundrel. It's not like that's an amazing book, but it's better than this. So, yeah, that's my number 144. I guess it's time to tick off the Stoverites again because my number 143 is going to be Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor. I went into this book wanting to like it because I was like, all right, he's writing, a Luke Skywalker adventure. He's writing a book with like a really unique villain. I'm really up for this. And I was really excited to read it. And it really doesn't work for me. And I was like, come on, are you serious? Just his writing style is just weird. He is just a weird writing style. The action in the book was weird. The villain was too overcomplicated for what he should have been, and that's not entirely Stover's problem. That's part of the problem because of the comics and other stories that this villain is in, but he's way too overcomplicated. And then Han and Leia show up, and their showing up just feels kind of out of nowhere, and it just doesn't really work for me. So yes, Luke Skywalker and the Shadows of Mindor is my number 143, and it's not that great a book. I'm sorry to say. Not good. My number 142 is going to be The Swarm War by Troy Denning. This is the third book in the Dark Nest trilogy. The Dark Nest trilogy is a trilogy that really, as time goes on about it, it was just so forgettable. It doesn't leave much of an impression on me. It doesn't leave a lot to be desired. In the moment, there were some cool moments, particularly in the first book, but in the third book, I completely forgot even what happens. And I didn't read this that long ago. I think I read this in like 2018 or 2019, so it's like 6 or 7 years ago. 7. This was 6 or 7 years ago that I read this, and it just, none of it stuck with me. And Troy Denning has some baller books on here. He has some of the top books on this list. This is not one of them, sadly. None of the trilogy is that high. So The Swarm War is number 142. Number 142. My number 141 is going to be The Cestus Deception by Stephen Barnes. This is another Clone Wars novel. This is one where Stephen Barnes really can write science fiction well. Can he write Star Wars well? No. And they gave him another opportunity in the canon with his new Mace Windu book, and he doesn't do a good job there either. So he's just not a fit for Star Wars. He's just not. And I don't blame him. Some authors just, like Vonda McIntyre, they're just not the right fit for Star Wars. And this book, it tries to tell an interesting science fiction story with the Hive in here, and it tries to, it weaves in Dooku for like a scene, even though he's like the biggest character on the cover. He's only present for one scene in this book, and there's really short chapters here. But this book is not a good book, and I was very disappointed in this book. So that's why it's my number 141. All right, my number 140 is going to be the first book in the timeline, and that is Dawn of the Jedi Into the Void by Tim LeBon. And this is a book that, again, so much potential. You're going back, 20,000 years. There's no continuity. You can tell a great story. And once it starts setting up some of the premise, I was like, all right, here we go. We're going to see how the Jedi were created. We're going to see how the Sith were created. We're going to see how the Force started being integrated and stuff. And no, what you get here is just a pseudo Jedi, Jedi, I think is what it's called, and she's sent on a mission, and it's so boring. And I'm sorry to say that. So that's my number 140. 139, a series we've already talked about on here, and that is the Black Fleet Crisis, book number 2, Shield of Lies by Michael P. QB McDowell. And this book's better than the first book, or it's better than the third book, I should say, and I think I remember liking some of the Luke and Lando stuff in here. So that's a positive I can give it. But otherwise, yeah, don't have much good to say about this one. So that comes in at 139. 138 is going to be Riptide by Paul S. Kemp. This is the sequel to Crosscurrent, which was a great book I'll talk about later. This book is a nothing burger of a book. It really feels like this is a short story or novella that's stretched into a novel length so that they could get another novel. And it just feels like, why bother? Why bother? The story was already so epic and so awesome and so entertaining in Crosscurrent, and this just left a bitter taste in my mouth for Paul S. Kemp, sadly. So that's my number 138. My number 137 is going to be The Unseen Queen by Troy Denning. This is the second book in the Dark Nest trilogy. Already talked about how my feelings on the trilogy as a whole. It's better than the third book, but yeah, I didn't particularly like this trilogy. Then you have my number 136 is going to be Before the Storm, the first book in the Michael QB McDowell trilogy, The Black Fleet Crisis. This is by far the best book in the trilogy, although that's not saying much because it's not a good book. But at least this book has a few scenes that I actually still really enjoy on remembering them, but a few scenes does not an entire novel make. And unfortunately, as a whole, this novel is still very, very disappointing. So that's why this goes at number 136. At number 135, we have Star Wars Rogue Planet by Greg Bear. This is the epic connection to the New Jedi Order. It was set during the prequel era, but it's got Sonoma Sakat, which if you know about Sonoma Sakat, that's a big deal, and so I was so excited to read it. And you got a legendary science fiction writer in Greg Bear, the son-in-law of Powell Anderson. Greg Bear himself wrote The Forge of God. You bring in a big heavy hitter to write a Star Wars standalone. And this is what he turns in. Best thing this book has going for it is Vergere is kind of in it, and that's about it. That's really the Anakin and Obi-Wan stuff isn't great. The Sonoma Sakat stuff isn't particularly great. It's handled better in the New Jedi Order, I think. So this book, I'm sorry to say, is not that great a book. So that's my number 135. Number 134 is going to be MedStar Battle Surgeons. When I watch a lot of TV, I love it when characters are sitting around talking in a room. And even when I'm reading some books, I can enjoy that. This book, so much of it is characters sitting talking around in the room, and the characters aren't that interesting yet. I will say they become more interesting in book 2, but this book, I'm sorry to say, was not entertaining. So that's MedStar Battle Surgeons is my number 134. My number 133 is going to be the weakest book of the Republic Commando series, and that's Order 66. There's some stuff in this series I liked. This book, however, I did not like this book. And I felt the ending was a little rushed, and I felt like it doesn't spend enough time on Order 66, and instead it spends too much time just kind of on the build-up. So yeah, this book was not particularly great, and that's why it's my number 133. If anything's gonna lose me street cred with the Star Wars book fandom, it's gonna be this next one. Because the New Jedi Order, there's a lot of books in that. There's like a 19-book series. And so many people put this as their number one book in that series. And I did not like it at all. It's fundamentally something I don't enjoy, and that's Traitor by Matthew Stover. I get why everyone else loves this. My brother-in-law, this is his favorite Star Wars novel. Not his favorite Star Wars New Jedi Order novel. This is his favorite Star Wars novel. His favorite Star Wars story, period. And yet I don't like what Matthew Stover did with the character of Jacen. I don't like what he did with Vergere, with Coruscant, with the... I don't like his way of writing the Force, his way of writing anything in Star Wars, really. And this book, it's better than Shatterpoint and Luke Skywalker in the Shadows of Mindor, so at least it's better than those two, but I still didn't like Traitor, and that's why this is going at number 132. Please do not consider me a traitor to the Star Wars fandom. Number 131 is going to be the best of the Dark Nest trilogy, and that's going to be The Joiner King. This book, I thought it was bland. I don't think it's particularly bad. I just don't think it's good. That's really all I got to say about this one. I just don't think it's a good story. I think it's just, it's not a really good one. All right. Next we have number 130 is going to be The Approaching Storm by Alan Dean Foster. Alan Dean Foster keeps getting a gig with Star Wars. He wrote, he wrote 4 Star Wars books, kind of like Stover, and none of them impressed me. At least his other ones will get into the it's alright category, but my number 130, this Approaching Storm, I was so excited because I love Luminara Unduli. I love Obi-Wan and Anakin, and I was like, ooh, we got a prequel to Attack of the Clones, and it's... What happened? Not much in this book. Number 129 is going to be Star Wars MedStar 2 Jedi Healer. This is a much better book than the first one. I still don't care for the duology as a whole. Michael Reeves and Steve Perry, they can write good Star Wars, particularly Michael Reeves. This is just not it. This book is at best all right, but it's not even that all right as I look over it over time. The best thing that this book does is it sets up another series, which is way better than it, which I'll talk about when I get there. But that's my number 129. And the last book in this category of not good books, the 1 to 2 star ratings, the best of those is going to go to number 128, Labyrinth of Evil. This book by James Luceno is just such a weird book for him. It doesn't tell much of a story. The story that it does tell is told better in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars series, and the idea of writing a book that's a prequel to a movie. He wrote a prequel to The Phantom Menace, which I think is way better, and he wrote a prequel to Rogue One, which I think is way better. And so unfortunately, of the James Luceno prequels, this is his weakest book. Just in general, this is probably one of his weakest books. Although Tarkin is pretty weak, but this is, in my opinion, his weakest book. So that's number 128. So that's all of my category of the not good at all. So now we have my, it's alright category. These are like 3 out of 5 stars. These are books that, I don't hate the books. I don't think they're terrible books. I just don't think they're great books. These are 25 books that I think are alright. They're alright, I guess. So let's talk about them. I'm not going to have too much to say because it's not like there's a lot to talk about with these. So this category should go faster, I would assume. We'll start off with my number 127 is going to be Tales from the Empire, edited by Peter Schweikhofer. This is, much like Tales of the New Republic, this is a Star Wars short story collection mostly pulled from the Adventure Journal series, and which was published in the 90s. And there's some stories in here that I enjoyed, although I will admit that I am most frustrated by the fact of who you see on the cover is not actually who is in the book, and it's kind of a bait and switch. But regardless, the short stories in here, I mean, they're alright. None of them are spectacular, but there's some alright stories in here. So that is Tales from the Empire, is my number 127. At number 126, we have Imperial Commando 501st. By Karen Traviss. This was, I think, supposed to be the first in a new series. She had done the Republic Commando books, now she's doing the Imperial Commando books, and unfortunately, this book is just kind of it's just kind of there. It doesn't go anywhere. It's not particularly the most interesting characters. I don't like the way that Karen Traviss writes the clones and writes Mandalorians in general. So just the book's just it's all right. It's nothing special. So that is my number 126. My number 125 is an adaptation of an RPG game, and that is Scourge by Jeff Grubb. The RPG game is very much felt in this book. You definitely can tell, oh, this is when the characters go get this. This is when this happens. This is when this happens. It's very much an RPG story, and it's a fine story, but there's nothing particularly spectacular about it. I mean, it's all right. It's all right, I guess. So that's number 125. My number 124 is the worst author or book by this author for Star Wars, that is. And that is Survivor's Quest by Timothy Zahn. Yes, Timothy Zahn has written some bangers, and he will show up a whole lot later in the video. But this book, it was, Tim, what are you doing? This book is so boring, and I don't like the mystery behind it. I think that it kind of, because this book came out before Outbound Flight, it kind of changes the way you read Outbound Flight. I think that the Outbound Flight does it better, and I think that this is not a good example of seeing the Sith in the Star Wars EU. Not the Sith, the Chiss, I should say. The Chiss in the Star Wars EU. So I didn't particularly like their portrayal in this book. Zahn wrote it mostly because, hey, Troy Denning got to do a Han and Leia book. I want to do a Luke and Mara book. And as a Luke and Mara book, this leaves a lot to be desired. There's better Luke and Mara books out there. So yes, Tim, I'm sorry, this book was at best all right. At number 124. Number 123, we have our next New Jedi Order book to talk about, and that is Force Heretic 2 Refugee. This is a book that brings back Bakura in a unique way, but it's not like it makes it particularly better. I was actually hoping that they'd do a lot more with the characters at Bakura to deal with the Yuuzhan Vong, and that's not what happens here. And this becomes basically kind of a fill-in book. It's, oh, the big stuff's about to happen. We need an author to kind of just like tide us over for now while our characters are journeying over to Zanoma Sakat. So yeah, this book, yeah, it's nothing special. Number 123. At number 122, we have a short story collection, Tales from Jabba's Palace. I think that there are some pretty good stories in here, but there's a lot of medium stories in here. And there's a few stories I didn't like, but there's a lot of medium stories in here. And so because that, it doesn't do that much for me. If I had to go back, what I would probably do is go back and just reread the ones I liked, and that'd probably be it, which there's not that many. So yeah, I mean, it's all right. It's apparently, for a long time, this was one of the best-selling science fiction anthologies. And, Kevin J. Anderson can write by himself some great Star Wars material. This is just all right. He also edited Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina, which is my number 121. And this book, it's all right. I think I liked it better than Tales of the Jabba's Palace, maybe, but it's short stories I liked, short stories I really didn't like, just a lot in the middle. So that's that one. Next, I can talk about the Star Wars trilogy I've not talked about yet, and that is the Corellia trilogy by Roger McBride Allen. I always want to say Roger Allen McBride, but no, it's Roger McBride Allen, and this is Assault at Salonia. If you noticed, a lot of book threes were at the bottom of the other trilogies I talked about, with Dark Nest and talking about the Bounty Hunter Wars and talking about the Black Fleet Crisis. I thought that the weakest of the Corellian trilogy was Assault at Salonia. I thought that books 1 and 3 were a lot better, and I'll talk about them in just a moment. But yeah, so Assault at Salonia, very forgettable book. Very forgettable book. Number 120. At 119, we have The Truce at Bakura, a book I was expecting to be much worse because I heard it so much ragged on when I was listening to podcasts back in like 2017 and 2018 when I was getting into the Star Wars books. And I read this book and I was like, it's all right. So I went from, it's all right, to, it's all right. It's not that bad a book. It's actually quite fun. It's not a good book. It's not a good book, but it's all right. It's got some interesting themes. This is as close to Star Trek villains as you'd get in Star Wars. I was not assimilated into this story, I will say. So that's my number 119. At number 118 and 117 and 116 is a trilogy I'm going to talk about together because I feel that they all go together, and also my bind-up goes together, and that is the Brian Daley Han Solo trilogy. I actually have to say I liked Han Solo at Star's End the best of the three, and I thought Han Solo's Revenge and Han Solo and the Lost Legacy were fine, but this trilogy, it works better for me than when you talk about the classic Star Wars books, and I mean the true classics, like the classics. It works better than the Lando books for me, which at least this book's tell a fun story, even if I feel it doesn't really fit in the Star Wars mythos much. The Lando books are neither fun nor do they fit. At least this one, it's fun, but it still feels very odd. It's all set in the corporate sector, and it's just yeah, Han and Chewie are the same, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like Star Wars to me. So that's the Han Solo Adventures, and I know there are people who love the Han Solo Adventures. I'm just not one of them. So that's number 118, 117, and 116. At number 115, we have the end of Roger McBride Allen's trilogy, which is Showdown at Centerpoint. And the Centerpoint station becomes a big deal here, becomes a big deal later on in the Legacy of the Force. And this book, I don't have a lot that I remember. I remember enjoying it. I also remember that this book has the most obvious example of Tuckerization I've ever read in a book. The most obvious, where I know who the editor of this book was, and basically the editor, if you take the first letter of his first name and the first letter of his last name and just swap them, that's what the author does in this book. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's the most obvious there's not even you're not even trying to mask that you're Tuckerizing this author or this editor. Anyway, that's a whole other subject, but that being said, it's okay. It's an okay book. So that's my number 115. Number 114. I can't believe this author wrote a book that I just don't remember much about, and that's Annihilation. I just don't remember much of what happens in this book. It just feels like I remember it being about a non-Force user who was born to a Force user, but man, it's just, this is one of those books that I read it in one ear, out the other. It did not stick at all. And so I'm not saying it was a bad book. I'm just saying I don't remember what kind of book it was. And that's why it goes at number 114. We also have at number 113, we have Yoda Dark Rendezvous, a book that everyone was telling me, you gotta read this book. It's a great Clone Wars era book. And I read it, and I'm like, hey, Yoda's not even in the book that much. And even when he is, he's not even the POV character all the time. But even when he's in it, he's not that great a book. Some of the stuff with Dooku was interesting a bit, but it just feels like I don't know. This book tells some stories that I think Dave Filoni's Clone Wars tells better. That's how I would put it. So that's why this is my number 113. My number 112 is the best book of the Corellian trilogy, and that's Ambush at Corellia, which I'm sorry you see my copy. It's so beat up. I need a new copy of this, but it's hard to find this trilogy anywhere. But yeah, this is the best of the trilogy. And I think it has some cool moments, but it's not saying that much. What am I at? Number 111. At number 111, we have Slave Ship by K.W. Jeter. I remember reading this book, and it's so much of this book is so boring, but there's a sequence where I was like, holy crap, I can't believe you did that! And it's just one sequence in the middle of this book. And it's not enough to make it as a great book, but it's enough to be like, hey, at least I remember something cool, because there's a holy crap moment in this book. That was a lot of fun. Otherwise, it's a pretty forgettable book. Number 110 is going to be Paul S. Kemp's Deceived. Again, I don't remember much about this. I remember a sequence of some Sith getting into the Jedi Temple. That's about it. I know it's a tie-in to the Old Republic video game with Darth Malgus and stuff. I remember reading this and being like, all right, what's next? And then it just didn't stick with me. And that happens with some Star Wars books. They just don't stick with you. So that's my number 110. Number 109 is a book that stuck with me, and I was like, ooh, y'all love this thing? So that's Splinter of the Mind's Eye. This is literally the only Star Wars written after, A New Hope, after the original Star Wars, and it might have been all of it if A New Hope had flopped. But this is such weird choices. At least I think this is a better book than the other classics like the Han Solo trilogy and the Lando trilogy. But like Malandine Foster, man, what were you doing? George, what were you feeding him? These are not good ideas. And people are like, oh, the showdown with Vader and Luke and Leia is so good in this book. And I was like, I mean, it's all right. And they were like, oh, well, getting to see what he would have done if he hadn't been able to make Star Wars on the huge budget. I'm like, I mean, it would have been all right, but it would not have been Mimban, and this is not anything in particularly great. So it's all right, I guess. So that's my number 109. Number 108 is going to be the last released, or at least one of the last released Star Wars books, and that's Star Wars Honor Among Thieves. It was supposed to be part of this trilogy, this Empire Rebellion trilogy. Only 2 of the 3 books got released. And this book, it has some actual quite fun moments, and it brings in a new character that's quite a lot of fun for Han to deal with. I think that she is delightful, but as a whole story, it's just an okay story. I'm sorry to say. So that's my number 108. Number 107 is actually going to be the weakest book in the Legacy of the Force series, and that's going to be Inferno by Troy Denning. Troy wrote some great books in the Legacy of the Force and Fate of the Jedi and New Jedi Order, but this was not one of them. This was just I mean, it's all right. It's okay, I guess. This is the one immediately after dies, and it's supposed to be such a melancholy book, and it's supposed to be it's supposed to make you feel things, and I'm like, yeah, this felt like a placeholder. It felt like, it was a 9-book series that should have been like a 5-book series, and this one should have been cut. That's just my opinion. But it's all right. The stuff dealing with the death of is actually still okay in this book. So that's my number 107. At 106, we have Darksaber by Kevin J. Anderson. Remember, all the way back at the beginning of this ranking video, I talked about how bad the Callisto trilogy was with books 1 and 3. Well, this is book 2 of the trilogy, and at best, it's all right. But Kevin J. Anderson, at least he gets Star Wars, and at least this book feels like a Star Wars book. But other than that, there's some weird stuff in this book too. And the stuff with the Hutts, the stuff with the Darksaber weapon itself, which is not the Darksaber from the Clone Wars, by the way. But yeah, at least it's better than those books. But it's at best all right. That's my number 106. 105 is another book that when I read this book, I had such a fun time reading it. And then I went back to look at it. I was like, what was that about? And that's Fatal Alliance. This is the book where this Jedi and the Sith kind of have to work together. And yeah, I mean, it didn't stick with me that much. It's not amazing. I think Sean Williams did okay with this. But yeah, that's my number 105. Then 104, 103, 102 is one bind up, and I feel the same way about all the books pretty much, and that is the novelizations of the original Star Wars trilogy. Read these a long time ago, And I think that Return of the Jedi is the best novelization in this batch. And I think after the weaker one is A New Hope. It says it's done by George Lucas, but really it's done by Alan E. Foster. And then of course I would say that Donald F. Glutt's Empire Strikes Back is in the middle. That being said, I don't think these novelizations, it's not like they add a ton. It's not like they deviate. It's not like the Clone Wars novelization where they deviated so much it bothered me. But I don't feel they added a lot like later novelizations would. I think that the prequel novelizations actually added a lot more in a good way. But these novelizations are all right. They're all right. And that is the end of my 3-star category, the It's Alright category. Next, we get to move up to the 4-star, which is the good, not great category, which is actually the largest category. We have hit the 3rd category, which is going to be the books that I would say are good, but not great books. These are books that I really enjoyed reading them, but I don't think that they're amazing, great books. I think that they're good books. And these are like 4 out of 5 books. These are books that for the most part, some of these might be rounded up from like 3.5 out of 5, and some of these might be rounded down from like 4.4 out of 5. But these were entertaining stories, but there's not like I absolutely love any of these. So we're just going to go through these. This is the largest category of the categories. This one actually has over 40 books to talk about. So, whoo boy, let's get strapped in and get started. And we'll start with my number 101, which is going to be Shadow Games by Michael Reeves and Maya Catherine Bonoff. This is a very different book for them. It's about Dash Rendar becoming a bodyguard for a pop singer. It sounds really weird. It's actually quite a fun premise. And it's got some of those classic Star Wars touchstones that you like. But it's unremarkable. It's a good read for the moment, but it's an unremarkable read, which is why it comes in at 101. We have finally reached my top 100. Whoo boy, we've been working through a lot. So my number 100 Star Wars book is probably the book with the worst cover, and that's going to be Star Wars Galaxies: The Ruins of Dantooine, where they literally just said, let's just take the cover from the video game and let's just call it there. But oh my goodness, this is such a fun book by itself. But what does it have to do with the Galaxies video game? It's such a weird story, but I actually quite liked it. It's not a great story. Don't get me wrong. It's not a great story, but it's all right. It's fun. It's fun. So that's why it's my number 100. My number 99 is going to be a trade paperback, and that's going to be Karen Travis's No Prisoners, a Clone Wars novel. This is Karen Travis being like, hey, what if I take the Clone Wars and blend it with the post-Return of the Jedi EU world building? And so she brings in Callista, and she brings in other Jedi from that era into this, and also tells a Clone Wars story, all doing it very quick in a book that's like less than 200 pages. It's about 200 something pages long. And it's really short, really fast, not the best Clone Wars book. It's fun. I had fun with it. That's about all I can say about it. My number 98 is going to be a novelization of a video game, and that's going to be Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 2. This should have worked so much better because the writing style in this book from Sean Williams is on another level. The way that he writes action, characters, dialogue, everything, the way he writes everything is brilliant, and I loved all of that. But the story is so paper thin. This should have been like a tack on to the original video game as like a short story or a short DLC. This is instead what should be a short story novella length book stretched into a full novel because there's not enough story here. And so it would have been so much higher because the writing style is so good in this book. But the story itself is not great. And it's not Sean Williams' fault, so I don't blame Sean Williams. But man, the story here is not good. So that's why it's my number 98. 97, we have the second book in the Agents of Chaos duology, Jedi Eclipse from the New Jedi Order. This book, all I could say is I like it, but I like the other Han Solo stuff better. I think that the other book eclipses this one. My number 97 is going to be the weakest book of the Han Solo trilogy by A.C. Crispin, and that is The Hutt Gambit. Now, books 1 and 3 in that trilogy are in my top tier because they're amazing. This book, the middle book in the trilogy, it was entertaining. But I think it gets way too weird with the Hutt stuff here, and I think that the story it tells is too weird, and I think that it explores some weird things. But I enjoyed the process, and I really did enjoy this book. So that's why this is my number 96. My number 95 is one of those books that when I read it, I liked it, but now I'm like, okay. And that's Fury by Aaron Alston. I believe this is the 4th book in the Legacy of the Force series. It's very unremarkable. Remember when I said earlier that the Legacy of the Force should have cut down to like 5 books instead of 9? This is one of those books I think it could have cut down. But even though in the moment I loved reading this in the moment, now that I'm like, okay, it doesn't stick with me. Not too much sticks with me about number 95, Fury. My number 94 is going to be probably, in my opinion, the weakest of the hardcovers for New Jedi Order. I have a paperback version of it, but the New Jedi Order came out. They have hardcovers. There were like 5 or 6 of them, and then the rest were exclusive trade mass markets. I have them all in mass market now, but this one came out in hardcover, Destiny's Way by Walter John Williams, and I liked it in the moment. I think it tries to kind of write the story of Jason and Vergere, and I like where it takes them in this book. But that's about it. That's all I have about that one to say. My number 93 is a book that should be better, but the author couldn't help herself, and that is Bloodlines by Karen Traviss. This is from the Legacy of the Force series. Karen Traviss knows how to write entertaining stories, but in this book, it's like she just wanted to write a Mandalorian focused book, and she did not want to write a book that Aaron Alston and Troy Denning wanted to write. And so as such, her books in this series just feel so disjointed and feel like they just don't fit. And so this book has some great moments. Oh, the Centerpoint Station stuff in this book is great. Even some of the Mandalorian stuff in this book is pretty good. Even some of the stuff with some of the main characters is pretty good. But when you look at it as a Legacy of the Force book, it's not that great. But I enjoyed it. I did enjoy the process overall. So that's why I give it my number 93. My number 92 is the book Remnant. The more I think about this, the higher it goes in my list. I used to not talk about it as favorably, but I actually like what they do with the Chiss in this book better than what they do in the Chiss in Survivor's Quest. Which is funny because this is not Tim Zahn writing books. This is Sean Williams and Shane Dix. But I actually like the way that they write the Chiss in this book. And, this is kind of one of those filler books that there's kind of biding time until they get to Zonoma Sakat. And, it's a fun read. It's a fun read. Then we have my number 91, which is going to be 000. The book by Karen Traviss, and I'm like, what happened in that book? Like, I remember reading it and I reviewed it on Facebook years ago, and I was looking back at it and I was like, man, I don't remember much. I enjoy the story, even if I don't enjoy the way that she writes the Mandalorians and the clones and the characters. But yeah, that's my number 91. My number 90 is going to be the weakest book in the Fate of the Jedi series, and that's going to be Abyss by Troy Denning. This is the book that introduces Abeloth. You hadn't really seen Abeloth before. You see Abeloth in this book, and Troy Denning just goes into the weird stuff sometimes, and sometimes it works out well, and this time it does not. But as an enjoyable book, it's an overall enjoyable book. Number 89 is going to be Exile by Aaron Alston. I think it's better than Fury. I think that's the stuff that this book does with Alana was actually really precious. Then, yeah, I enjoyed this. This is a middle of the road Legacy of the Force book. I still hold. This is one of the books that should have been cut so I could go from 9 down to like 5. This is one of the books that should have been cut though. All right, that was my number 89. My number 88 is going to be Force Heretic 3 Reunion. By far the best Force Heretic book. This book is when they finally get to Zanoma Sakat. I really liked the sequences here. I actually really have fond memories of this book. So Sean Williams and Shane Dix finally have a hit on their hands with this book, and I thought that it was a good book. It's not like out of the park or anything. It's a solid double. They got a solid double with this one, and I enjoyed it. Next, we have number 87, which is Betrayal by Aaron Alston. This is the first book in the Legacy of the Force series, and this one is actually one that definitely was needed for the Legacy of the Force, and it has some really cool moments. Seeing Jason's turn in this book is really cool. Seeing poor Ben just kind of following along is really cool. Seeing the whole Solo family at the beginning of the book, the whole Solo Skywalker family, I thought that was really delightful. And then seeing all the arguments, and I'm still Team Jag. I'm not Team Jag. Team Zek, and so I'm still smarting over some of the stuff in this book with him and Jagged Fell. But anyway, it's a fun book. The Legacy of the Force is not my favorite series, but it's a fun book. Now, from a number 86 is going to be Vortex by Troy Denning. The Fate of the Jedi book that I remember enjoying a lot while reading it, but I don't actually remember a lot about it now. So yeah, that's my number 86. I enjoyed this one. 85. It's been a while since we've had an X-Wing book on the list, and we have X-Wing Iron Fist by Aaron Alston. What I remember about this book is it's a fun book. There's some good humor in it. This is the middle book of his trilogy that he wrote. He was kind of writing real fast because he was late to the process, but this was his middle book, and it's his shortest book in this trilogy, and you feel that it's a really fast-paced book, which I think actually helps it out a lot. So yeah, this is my number 85. My number 84 goes to Patterns of the Force by Michael Reeves. I mentioned earlier that the MedStar books, the best thing that they do is they set up another series. What they set up is the Coruscant Nights trilogy, and well, really, it's the Coruscant Nights tetralogy. They just don't call the fourth book the fourth book. I'll talk about that later. But yeah, I really enjoyed Patterns of the Force by Michael Reeves. It should be noted, it's not on here, but Maya Catherine Bonoff did kind of help him a little bit on this book. But it's Michael Reeves' book. But yeah, I think that it kind of retreads some stuff that the first two books did, but it's still a really entertaining trilogy. The way that he writes crime fiction is actually a lot of fun, and I liked the way that you have the crime fiction in this book, but I like it better in the other ones. So that's my number 84. My number 83 is going to be the Phantom Menace novelization by Terry Brooks. He adds some stuff with the Sith that I loved in this book. The way that he deals with stuff on Tatooine I really enjoyed. He made some weird decisions by not doing Misa with Jar Jar, saying Mia. And because of that, it's just a weird, like some of his dialogue choices, it's like he just couldn't bring himself to write what George had wrote on the page. And he's probably like, are you sure, George? Are you sure? And he went and did his own thing. But still, it's an admirable novelization. The weakest of the prequel novelizations, but an admirable novelization nonetheless. That's number 83. My number 82 is actually a recent read, and that is Millennium Falcon by James Luceno. Yes, this is when James Luceno, he writes a story time spanning the entire time that the Falcon's been in existence, has some really fun moments, a really cool mystery. This is very much a puzzle box book, and you have to read it after Legacy of the Force. You can read it before Fate of the Jedi, or you can read it after Fate of the Jedi. It doesn't matter, just after Legacy of the Force. But it's delightful. It's a delightful read, and that's why it goes at number 82. At number 81, we have X-Wing Wraith Squadron by Aaron Alston. This is one of the funniest Star Wars novels, and this is him doing his own thing on the X-Wing series. He brings in his own new squadron. Instead of the Rogue Squadron, it's the Wraith Squadron. It's much more colorful, much more alien, much more fun and silly, and I'm more a Michael Stackpole writer fan than a Aaron Alston fan, but this is a fun book. This is a fun book. At number 80, we have Timothy Zahn's Scoundrels. This is, he pitched the book as Solo's 11, his version of Ocean's 11, and you can definitely feel that in the way that the book is structured. It's very much a heist novel. It's Tim Zahn letting loose, having fun. Previously, he's been writing all these serious stories, these Jedi versus Sith, these Jedi versus the Empire, Republic versus the Empire, all this stuff. For once, he's like, let me write just something fun. And this is a fun book. And I would have loved to have seen more from Tim Zahn go a different direction here. But this is much more like his science fiction novels that he's written. So that's number 80. Number 79 is going to be X-Wing Isard's Revenge. This is Michael Stackpole's book. He wrote the first 4, went away while Aaron Alston wrote a trilogy, and then he came back and wrote this standalone. And this book is set right around the time of the, right after the events of the Heir to the Empire trilogy, the Thrawn trilogy. And it was cool seeing that stuff again, but as a X-Wing book, it actually has the X-Wings, which I liked, but it's not up to the snuff of his best X-Wing books, in my opinion. So yeah, Isard's Revenge goes at number 79. Number 78 is going to be the second book in the Coruscant Nights trilogy, and that's going to be Street of Shadows. I loved the mystery elements, the murder mystery here. I loved seeing the underworld of Coruscant. I loved seeing, our main characters are trying to solve a murder mystery, but then you also have the police who are trying to track down our main characters because he's a fugitive Jedi. It's so well done. I really enjoyed Street of Shadows by Michael Reeves. That's my number 78. At number 77, we have X-Wing Solo Command by Aaron Alston. Of his trilogy that he wrote, this is the best of his trilogy. The carrier battle in this book is actually quite well done. I really like the way that Aaron Alston writes the action in this book in particular. And so I think that this is a very good X-Wing novel by Aaron Alston. Now we have number 76, which is Allies by Christie Golden from the Fate of the Jedi. It's her weakest Fate of the Jedi book, but still a very entertaining book. This is when the Lost Tribe of the Sith actually finally shows down against our main characters. We had seen 1 or 2 characters from the Lost Tribe here or there, but now we get to see them go really up against our main Jedi, and this was delightful to read about. So that's why it's my number 76. My number 75 is going to be the New Jedi Order book, Rebirth by Greg Keyes. This is the second book in his duology. Now, the first book is way higher on the list, but this book is a tremendous, entertaining book. We finally get to see the birth of Ben Skywalker in this book, but it's not up to the snuff of his other stuff. But this is a fun book. All right, where am I at? I am at number 74. By the way, we're halfway there. We're halfway through my ranking, by the way. We're at number 74. Oof. So, number 74 is Death Troopers. This is a Star Wars horror novel. This is like, man, this is taking a risk because Star Wars is not a horror franchise, and yet Joe Schreiber was able to do a great job with writing Star Wars zombies. And I think that he felt hemmed in, like he was like, man, I gotta include certain classic characters. So certain characters show up and I'm like, oh man, you shouldn't have done that. You shouldn't have done that. But it's a fun book. I actually like Joe Schreiber's other Star Wars books better. I think this is weakest. I like his other stuff even better, but this is still a delightful Star Wars read. All right, now we're to number 73, which is going to be Yeah, if I can grab it. This is going to be Star Wars Republic Commando True Colors. This is the third Republic Commando book. I thought that this book told there's the Jedi that's connected to the Republic Commando series. I thought this was her best book. I thought this was a great book for the Republic Commando as a whole. So yeah, I loved this book, True Colors. I thought it was quite a lot of fun. And this was like, all right, Karen Travis, I'll trust you. I'll give you a shot. I'll give you a shot. You did a good job with this. Number 72 is going to be The Mandalorian Armor by K.W. Jeter. It feels like forever ago I talked about the other two books in this trilogy. I thought the first book in it was really quite good. Just thought this book 2 was okay and book 3 was not great. But the first book, The Mandalorian Armor, this is the how, this book starts with how, Boba Fett escaped the Sarlacc. And I really enjoy what K.W. Jeter does in this book. I thought he did a great job with this book. And so I really enjoyed The Mandalorian Armor. I also love that cover. Oh, that cover is so cool. All right, now we're to number 71. And that's going to be Legacy of the Force Sacrifice by Karen Travis. This is the book where a certain character, you may know, gets sacrificed and dies. And this was a very controversial book. And in my opinion, this book's parts are better than some of it. There's some really cool epic moments here. And this is a longer book for the Legacy of the Force. It's like about almost 500 pages. And if my memory serves correctly, and I might be wrong, but for Legacy of the Force, they got 3 hardcovers. They did the first book by Alston, they did the middle of the middle books by Travis, and then the third book by, third of the final book by Denning got the hardcover treatment, and everything else was mass market. And you feel that with this book. It feels like it's leveled up story-wise so that they could add more, but it's entertaining, but it's also very risky, and I understand why people were angry when it came out. Number 70 is going to be Vector Prime, a book that, this is a book that it's funny that this comes right after Sacrifice, because they both kill off characters controversially. But Vector Prime is a Star Wars book where they were trying to change it up. They were trying to take a risk. And in my opinion, this is one of the best risks that they ever took in Star Wars. I think that a New Jedi Order was a brilliant move on Lucasfilm and Del Rey's part, and I thought they did a great job with it. And I think that Vector Prime is a delightful book. Yes, the ending of that certain character is kind of ridiculous, but it's still a charming book, and I really enjoyed it. So that's why it goes at my number 70. At number 69, he is going to be Champions of the Force by Kevin J. Anderson. Kevin J. Anderson writes some great stuff. My favorite Kevin J. Anderson Star Wars stuff is actually his Young Jedi Knights books. I think those are up there as some of the best Star Wars stories ever told. But his Jedi Academy trilogy is a lot of fun. The weakest of the trilogy is Champions of the Force, but it's still a pretty darn good book. So that's why I give this book my number 69. My number 68 is going to be The Revenge of the Sith novelization by Matthew Stover. I told you there was a Matthew Stover book I liked. I really like this novelization. Again, it's not because it's Stover as much, more because I like the Revenge of the Sith storyline. But I actually really enjoyed this novelization. I think it adds a lot, which it does. I think that Stover actually did a good job of adding some depth to the Sith, some depth to the Jedi, some depth to the overall Star Wars storytelling. This is my favorite Stover book, and it's at number 68 overall. And I know there are some people who have this book on a pedestal like they have The Traitor on a pedestal, but for me, it's number 68. Now we're to number 67. 67 is going to be Outcast by Aaron Alston. This is the first book in the Fate of the Jedi series. I think it's a delightful start to the Fate of the Jedi. I think that it's got some really cool sequences. The opening chase sequence, the scenes with the Dala and with the head of the New Republic, the scene of Luke leaving Coruscant. Hauntingly beautiful scene. And then the scenes with him and Ben kind of going around on their expedition is a lot of fun to read. So Outcast is my number 67. My number 66 is going to be the final book in the Legacy of the Force, and that is Invincible by Troy Denning. I think Troy did a great job wrapping it up. It's actually shocking how short this book is, because he writes some big books out there, and this book's just so short, yet he's able to concisely write the end of the New Jedi Order, or I mean, the end of the Legacy of the Force, and I think actually this is a better ending than the overall story of the Legacy of the Force deserved. So that's why it's my number 66. Execute Order 66. Wow, there's a lot of 6 jokes I can make. All right. My number 65 is going to be Choices of One by Timothy Zahn. This is kind of like an unofficial duology with Allegiance, and this one actually has Thrawn, it's got Mara Jade, it's got Luke Skywalker, it's got the big scaffold moment that's such an iconic moment in Star Wars storytelling. It's got the Moriarty character that Tim really meant to be his Moriarty and ends up not being his Moriarty. But yeah, this is a fun book. This is a fun book. I really enjoyed Choices of One. That was my number 65. My number 64 is going to be the Attack of the Clones novelization. This is actually my favorite EU novelization of the movies. That is, I actually like a few of the canon novelizations better, in my opinion. I think the Rogue One novelization is the best. But of the EU, I think the R.A. Salvatore did a good job of balancing telling the story from the movie and adding in his own. And the scenes that he adds in of Shmi Skywalker in this book, to me, are so beautifully done, and they pair perfectly with what Troy Denning would do in the Tatooine Ghost book, which I'll talk about in a moment. But yes, Attack of the Clones novelization is my number 64, and it's delightful. I love this novelization. My number 63 is going to be the penultimate Legacy of the Force book, and I think it's way better than I remembered it being, and that is Revelation by Karen Traviss. This is an epic book. This is probably, in terms of scope, one of the most epic books in the Legacy of the Force series, and I thought it was really cool what she does with Jason Kaitis in this book, and what she does with the Empire in this book I thought was great. The stuff she does with Dala, the stuff that she does with the Jedi in this book, I thought it was a really good book. And of course, she's got to have her Mandalorians. And this is the best use of the Mandalorians in the Karen Traviss books, in my opinion. So yeah, I enjoyed Revelation quite a bit, and that's why it's at my number 63. My number 62 is going to be Dark Apprentice, the second book in the Jedi Academy trilogy. This is another great book. Kevin's books aren't necessarily the most memorable, but man, he gets Star Wars in some great ways. And he really got Star Wars with this one, and I really liked it. So that's why it's my number 62. My number 61 is Death Star by Michael Reeves and Steve Perry. I told you that they have a better book on here. And this book is a book that should not work. This is one of those times where I'm like, how could this possibly be entertaining? And it is. It's really, really good. And I really liked it. And it tells a smaller story than you might be used to, but it's still a lot of fun. I actually reviewed this took some of my friends on the channel. My friends Caleb from Caleb Likes Books and my friend Alex. So check out that video if you're interested. But yeah, this is a lot of fun as a book. 61. Number 60 is going to be Allegiance by Timothy Zahn. This is his kind of standalone that became the first in a duology unofficially, and this is him writing some kind of roguish kind of stormtroopers that are serving Mara Jade, and I think that both stormtroopers are very well written here. I thought Mara Jade was well written, and so I thought this was a very entertaining kind of standalone-ish book, and that's why it's my number 60. My number 59 is going to be Lost Tribe of the Sith by John Jackson Miller. This is a short story collection. I love this short story collection. I really like what he does with the Sith here, the way that he ties it into the Fate of the Jedi, the way that he ties it into the Old Republic, the way that this book is just so creative in telling a Star Wars story that's not like other Star Wars stories. I thought that this collection of short stories was brilliant, and I loved it, and that's why it's my number 59. And my number 58 goes to this is the last in this category, and that goes to Dynasty of Evil, the third book in the Darth Bane trilogy. It's by far the weakest in the trilogy. It's still a pretty darn good book, and the ending leaves some to be desired. But I still think that this trilogy was Drew Karpyshyn at his best. So that's my number 58. And I've made it through the good, not great category, and we're moving into, some great stuff here. And now we're moving into my penultimate category. This is the most excellent category. This is like 4.5 out of 5. These aren't perfect Star Wars books, but man, these are some darn good ones. I love them. I love talking about them. I have such fond memories of so many of these, and I have 30 books in this category to go through. So let's talk through them. The final category is coming soon, where that's going to be the best of the best. But this is just these are so good, they just didn't make the best of the best. But these are so good. I have mostly positive things to say on all these. So we'll start with my number 57, which is Tales of the Bounty Hunters. This is the best Tales of short story collection. In fact, this is a novella collection, which is why I think it works better than the others. But this is the best short fiction collection. I think it actually adds the most. I think the Dengar storyline is the best one, but I thought that the other four novellas were actually all pretty good, and I really like what it tries to do, and I would have been okay if any of these had been full-length novels. So yes, I enjoyed Tales of the Bounty Hunters. By the way, Dave Wolverton wrote the Dengar storyline, and he redeemed himself from his other Star Wars book that he wrote. So yes, I enjoyed Tales of the Bounty Hunters quite a bit. That's my number 57. My number 56 is going to be Razor's Edge. This is by Martha Wells. This was the Leia book that's supposed to be part of that Empire and Rebellion trilogy with like Honor Among Thieves. And this is the best book of the trilogy because the third book is in the canon. That's Heir to the Jedi. Not a great book. And so of the three, this is the best. And this book was quite a lot of fun because it has some pirates in it, and it's actually way more fun than it has any right to be. And I enjoyed what Martha Wells turned in with Razor's Edge. So that's why it's my number 56 in my ranking. To my number 55 is going to be Fate of the Jedi Conviction. This is by Aaron Alston. This was the big political book when the Jedi finally decide we gotta do something politically. And so there's some awesome sequences in here. There's also some stuff with Luke and Ben in this book that it's actually quite a lot of fun. And you get to revisit some old Barbara Hambly characters in this book and some Barbara Hambly locations. But yes, Fate of the Jedi Conviction is a delightful, delightful read. That was my number 55. So my number 54 is going to be X-Wing Starfighters of Adjumar. This is by Aaron Alston again. This is his best X-Wing book in my opinion. This is a standalone X-Wing book, but I think that it gets the spirit of the X-Wings the best, the spirit of the characters like Tycho and Wedge. I think that it gets them really well, and I had a blast reading Starfighters of Adjumar. It's also a very short, quick read. So yeah, Starfighters of Adjumar is my number 54. Then you have my number 53, which is Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now I know what you're thinking. You're like, hang on, that's the movie from the canon that have ruined everything. No. This is The Last Jedi by Michael Reeves and Maya Kaufman Bonoff. This is remember when I said that the Coruscant Nights trilogy should have been a tetralogy? This should have been book 4 of the tetralogy, but it's just branded as its own book. But it's like the next adventure featuring Jax, Pavan, and the other characters, and I really liked it. I think it's a really good book. I just think it should have been branded differently. I will say that I think that The Last Jedi is better than The Last Jedi, and if you can figure out what I mean by that, that'd be funny. Anyway, that's that book. That was number, what was that, number 53? So now we're at number 52, which is going to be I, Jedi. This is a standalone featuring the character of Corran Horn. It's set during the events of the Jedi Academy trilogy. It really is Michael Stackpole's version of Day of the Jackal from Frederick Forsyth, and I think he does a very good job of weaving Corran into fictional events, and I really enjoyed I, Jedi, although it's not Mike Stackpole's best work. So that goes at number 52. My number 51 is an author that does not get enough credit, and I'm going to give her the credit now because she wrote some darn good Star Wars books, and that's Karen Miller. Everyone talks about Karen Traviss. Let's talk about Karen Miller. She wrote 3 Star Wars novels, all 3 of them absolute bangers. This is the weakest of the 3. It's still an absolute banger. This book feels like the TV show, and I love it, and I love it so much. And I loved reading Star Wars Clone Wars Gambit Stealth. It's got a great action scene at the beginning. It's got some more somber moments towards the end. It's got some great stuff with Obi-Wan in this book and Anakin. Some great stuff with Ahsoka and with Padme and Bail Organa. It's just, Karen Miller gets the Clone Wars for me, and I love the way she writes Star Wars. And I wish she did more. That's my number 51. My number 50. Cue the Princess Bride meme. Not 50! My number 50 Star Wars novel is going to be Crosscurrent by Paul S. Kemp. This is a ballsy book. This is a book where he takes a swing that I didn't know you could do in Star Wars, and it's so well done. It tells a story set in the Old Republic. It has a story set in the New Jedi Order era, the Legacy of the Force era. Jaden Korr is the main character. There's just so much this book does, and it's so good. It's so good. I thought that Paul Kemp, this is his best EU book for me. He has a book in the canon that I think is even better with Lost Tribe of the Sith, but not Lost Tribe of the Sith, Lords of the Sith. Always get those confused. But yes, Crosscurrent is a delightful read, and this was a more recent read for me, and it was a delightful, delightful read. That's why it comes in at number 50. Now, there is a Legacy of the Force book that rises above all of the other Legacy of the Force books, in my opinion. And that book is Tempest by Troy Denning. This is, in my opinion, the best Legacy of the Force novel. I loved what this book did with tying things to the Young Jedi Knights books. Troy Denning, more than any of the other Star Wars authors, was a fan of the Young Jedi Knights series, and you see that on display fully in this book. And I loved what he did with the Young Jedi Knights characters in this book. And that's why I think it's the best Legacy of the Force novel. And that's why it goes in at number 49. At number 48, we have Rebel Stand by Aaron Alston, the second book in his duology from the New Jedi Order. I think that this book really does some cool things with the Yuuzhan Vong and with the Rebellion. I think that the stuff with Jaina is well written, even though I'm still Team Zek, and Aaron, why'd you break my heart? But I still thought it was really well written, and it's got some cool stuff. Although this is not the best of the duology. Then we have number 47, and that's going to be Omen from the Fate of the Jedi. This is the second Fate of the Jedi book. It's the shortest one. This was Christie Golden. She didn't know how long Star Wars books were supposed to be, so it's like she wrote a Star Trek novel, because this is the length of like a Star Trek novel instead of a Star Wars one. But it's still so good. Getting to see the ship, the Omen, I thought was great. Getting to see the Lost Tribe of the Sith, I thought was great. We also, of course, have Luke and Ben off on their adventures, which was still great. And I really enjoyed this book. I just feel like she should have had more to it. So that's Omen. Now we're at number 46, and this is another novelization of a video game, and that's The Force Unleashed. The Force Unleashed was a great video game, and it is a great novelization. I think that Sean Williams did a terrific job adapting the game, and I think he did a really good job of making the story work in the novel format. I still don't like the concept of saying that, well, this is more canon, this is less canon. If you're going to have books and comics and movies and shows, just make them all the same level and communicate stuff. That's just me. But I still think it's a really great book. So that's my number 46. My number 45, this is going to be as high as this author gets on the list, and that is Karen Travis's Hard Contact. This is the one truly great Republic Commando book. I think that some of the others are entertaining or they have their moments, but this is the only one that actually breaks into it's actually legitimately great. And this book, it reminds me so much of a few episodes of the Clone Wars. I thought that it works well. I thought those Clone Wars episodes work well. This kind of has the, hey, a member of our crew is missing, we got to go get him type thing. And I enjoyed Hard Contact quite a bit. And so this is my number 45. At number 44, we have Agents of Chaos 1, Hero's Trial. This is when James Luceno, I think this was his first Star Wars novel, and this is when he really got Han Solo right. And not only did he get Han Solo right, but he did a great job of introducing Vergere into the Star Wars universe. He did a great job of telling some just really entertaining stories here. And so I really liked Hero's Trial. I think that this is a tremendous New Jedi Order book. That comes in at number 44. At number 43, we have the best of the Coruscant Nights books, and that's Jedi Twilight. Oh, the crime stuff, Jax Pavan finding out about his parentage. All that stuff is so great in this book. The droid is great. The Darth Vader is kind of in the shadows in this book, and it's the Twi'lek stuff. It's a delightful, delightful book, and I really loved it. And so Jedi Twilight comes in at number 43. At number 42, we have The Final Prophecy, the penultimate New Jedi Order book. Greg Keyes, the way he writes Star Wars is great. He had to write a transition book because we had to wait for Zanoma Sakat to get there, and we had to kind of write an intermediary book. And he actually writes a very good intermediary book here. So I really enjoyed The Final Prophecy. And that comes in at number 42. At number 41 is, in my opinion, one of the more underrated Star Wars novels, and that's Jedi Trial. Hey, it's a Clone Wars novel. It's actually a real Clone Wars novel that feels like it's telling the story about the clones and the Clone Wars. Also, there's some non-clone characters that I think are well done here. I think that Anakin was handled well here, and of this era of the Clone Wars storytelling. I'm not talking about the Clone Wars, like the TV show. I'm talking about like the Clone Wars, the books that were written in between episode 2 and episode 3. This one was one of my favorites. So I really liked Jedi Trial by Daniel Sherman and Dan Craig. And David Sherman and Dan Craig. And this is their only Star Wars novel. Why couldn't they write more? It's so good. They should have written more. Speaking of authors that should have written more, I have another Karen Miller book. Yes, at number 41 we have, number 40 we have Star Wars The Clone Wars Wild Space. Now this cover doesn't like nothing to do with the book, but it's in the Clone Wars TV show. It weaves in with some episodes of the Clone Wars. This book has an amazing opening sequence with Geonosis. It has a tremendous sequence interweaving with episodes. The ending has to do with Obi-Wan and Bail Organa and explaining how they developed a good relationship. And I love this book so much. And also, I love Palpatine in this book and in the duology that Karen Miller wrote. I think that she just gets so much about what I love about Star Wars. So this is my number 40. All right, so at number 39 is going to be The Bacta War. One of the fourth X-Wing book. Hey, it actually matches. I don't know if you can see this well. It actually matches my shirt. Actually, funny, quick story. My mom, years ago, bought this shirt for me before I was a Star Wars reader. And then I was reading the X-Wing books and I realized that one of the X-Wing books had this cover. And when I read this book, I was wearing this t-shirt. There's a picture somewhere in our family archives of me reading this book in this t-shirt, and it's delightful. But yes, The Bacta War, it's a delightful book. It's the book that wraps up what Michael Stackpole was trying to do with his series. It is when the rogues finally live up to their name and they go rogue from the New Republic. It's delightful. It's great. It's Mike Stackpole being Mike Stackpole. And I loved The Bacta War. I thought it was great. Great ending for this series. At number 38, we have the best Jedi Academy book, Jedi Search. Thought this was a great book. This is Kevin J. Anderson filling in stuff. This is him trying to establish new stuff. This is him trying to appeal to adults and kids and young adults, and he's writing everyone in between, and this is a great book. And also introduces us to Admiral Dala, who is a force to be reckoned with in the Star Wars universe. So that's my number 38. At 37, we have Dark Tide 2 Ruin. This is Michael Stackpole being like, you know what? You know who needs to be the main character? Corran. And Corran's a great character in this book. And I remember reading this book and being like, man, we could have stopped they could have stopped the Yuuzhan Vong. They had a chance to stop them, and I really wanted them to stop them. But I thought that Mike Stackpole did a great job in Ruin. And so that's why it's my number 37. My number 36 is going to be a classic Star Wars book, Shadows of the Empire. Everyone remembers Shadows of the Empire for a different reason. Some people remember the comics, some people remember the novel, some people remember the video games, some people remember the toys. I know people who remember it for the soundtrack. For me, I actually read the comic first at a friend's house before I was a reader. When I was like 13 years old, I was not a big reader. Like I could read books. I didn't want to. So I wasn't reading much. And my friend, I was staying with him for a week during the summer, and his parents made him read every day. And so during that time, they said, well, why don't you pick up a comic? And I was like, well, it's a Star Wars comic. I'll read it. So I read the Shadows of the Empire comic, and I thought it was delightful. And then I read the novel, and I thought it was delightful. And as an adult, I find it less delightful because some of the Xizor stuff is really skeevy, but if you take out that, it's actually quite a fun Star Wars adventure. It feels like Star Wars, except for the Xizor stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed Shadows of the Empire at number 36. At number 35 is the final Star Wars novel. It is the last written EU book in the timeline, and it is Crucible by Troy Denning. It's one final adventure. It's like an epilogue to the Fate of the Jedi series, but it's mainly focused on Han, Luke, and Leia. And it's so well done, so fun, so very much a Troy Denning book. And I think it does a great job of wrapping things up. And I think between this and his other book, Apocalypse, I think that the EU ends on a very high note. So I enjoyed Crucible quite a bit, and that's why it's my number 35. All right, so my number 34 is going to be, going back to the Dark Tide duology, Dark Tide Onslaught by Michael Stackpole. Has just died in the New Jedi Order, and it's such a big deal, and oh my goodness, what's going to happen next? And the Yuuzhan Vong are still coming in, and it's such a great book. And so that's why this is my number 34. My number 33 is the book Backlash by Aaron Alston. I actually really liked this one. I didn't expect that I would, but Aaron Alston really did a good job of establishing Ben and Vistara Kai's dynamic in this book, and he also just writes the Lost Tribe of the Sith stuff, and this is a very fun book, and I really like the way Aaron Alston wrote. This was one of the more fun Fate of the Jedi books, and I really liked it. So that was my number 33. Let's go to my number 32. This is one of those where I ranked it so high and everybody else has it at the bottom of their list. But I love it and everybody else is wrong. And my number 32 is going to be New Jedi Order Star Wars Dark Journey by Elaine Cunningham. I love the Young Jedi Knights books, and this feels like it's just a Young Jedi Knights book. It really feels, if you told me that this was a Young Jedi Knights book that they just changed to be set during the events of the New Jedi Order, I would have believed you. I loved it. I love the Hapes Consortium. I love Jaina. I love so much about this book. I love the way that Elaine Cunningham writes Star Wars. My brother-in-law does not like this book at all. This is his least favorite of the New Jedi Order books, but I love it. I love it so much. So that's why this is at number 32. Number 31, another classic, Rogue Squadron, the first X-Wing novel. Man, this is such a good book. This is Michael Stackpole really coming in, taking a swing. This could have potentially been bad, doing a mass market when all the other Star Wars novels were hardcovers, focusing on characters that are not the main characters. You have Wedge, but everyone else is an original character. It works. it works. And the villains, the ISB stuff in this book, and I really liked X-Wing Rogue Squadron. But we're still not at his best yet. Then we have my number, so that was my number 31. My number 30! This end actually, it's still pretty high. Think about it. They're about 157 books. We're in the top 30 now. But still some people would say I'm not putting it high enough. And that is Star by Star by Troy Denning. This is one of the most, if not the most singularly epic Star Wars novel out there in terms of the scope, in terms of the page count, in terms of what it's trying to do and wrap up and set up and just pay off. And this is the epic middle book of the New Jedi Order. And I think it's really well done. It's just not a favorite. But I really, really respect what Troy Denning does, especially he had the guts to kill off in this book. Yes, he has the guts to kill off that character, and it's such a well done story. The aftermath of that character's death is so great. The whole action sequence. Oh my word! The what happens at the very last chapter of this book was bold, and I liked it. So yes, this is my number 30 in my ranking, and it's epic and awesome. My number 29 is going to be Darth Bane: The Rule of Two. Don't let the cover fool you. The cover's weird. The cover is weird, but the book itself is great. It's dark. It's so well written. The way that Drew Karpyshyn writes the Force and the way that he writes the Sith here is great. I love the stuff with the Jedi in this book, even though it's not that much of the book. I loved the stuff with them and Chancellor Valorum. Not that Valorum, another Valorum. It's so good. So I loved Darth Bane: Rule of Two, and it goes at number 29. And the last in this category is going to be my number 28, which is going to be Cloak of Deception. Believe it or not, this is the first Star Wars novel I ever read. I read this at the library when my mom was forcing me as a kid to read a book. I saw this looked like the cover of, this looks like, Phantom Menace, because it's got Valorum and Palpatine and Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, and I was a huge Phantom Menace fan. As a kid, Phantom Menace was my favorite movie. As an adult, it's not. But as a kid, it was my favorite. And so I was so excited, and I start reading, and this book's all about politics, and it's about trade, the Trade Federation, and it's all about the taxes that they're going to put on the Trade Federation, and Valorum going to this, going to Palpatine to ask for his help, and Palpatine working things behind the scenes, and Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon serving as these judicial officials. And I loved it. I loved this book. And so maybe that has colored my opinion of it a bit because it's the first Star Wars book I read. But I remember talking to my mom about this book, and she was like, as a kid, I was like, like 10 when I read it. And she was like, what on earth are you talking about? She was very weirded out by it. But I loved Cloak of Deception. It has a high place in my heart. Is it that good as a book? Don't make me answer that question because I love it so much. So, all right, that is my most excellent category. Books number 27 through number 1 on the ranking are the top category. That is the top tier, the best of the best, and more to come. So we've finally made it to the top tier, the cream of the crop, the best of the best, the top 27 Star Wars novels in my ranking. Hallelujah! Hallelujah! Yes, we got to the top 27. This has been a long video. If you've stuck with me the whole time, I applaud you. But if you also just skipped to here because you wanted to see what was at the top, I totally get it. So let's go ahead. Let's jump into what's my number 27. These are the best of the best. I would put these up against any other franchise, any other genre, any other series, any other, whatever books out there. These are some great books. So my number 27 is going to be The New Rebellion. Interestingly, a book that's not talked about a lot, but man, is it so good, and it is a very entertaining book. It could have been even better. I would have made a few minor changes, but man, this is a great standalone from the Bantam era, actually. So I really enjoyed The New Rebellion. At number 26, we have Knight Errant by John Jackson Miller. Everybody else puts this way low at the bottom. I have a friend who has this as his least favorite Star Wars novel. But I loved Knight Errant. I loved the Jedi versus Sith stuff. I loved the exploration of the different types of Sith. I love Goody Two Shoes characters. And not Keira Knightley. Kira Holt is a Goody Two Shoes character, and I loved it. And I loved the twists in this book, and maybe it's just because I know John and I know the way he infuses communism and talks about how the different forms of communism are like the different forms of the Sith. I loved that about the book. So that's why this is my number 26. We're in the top 25! Woohoo! My number 25 is going to be Star Wars Gambit Siege by Karen Miller. The best of Karen Miller's books. It packs such an emotional punch. This is how you write an ending in the Clone Wars, and the way that she wrote all the characters, the action, the story, the themes. Everything about this book is great, just about. And so that's why it's my number 25. My number 24 is going to be Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader. Now, most of this book is not actually from Vader's perspective, so don't think that you're going and getting a Vader-heavy book, but Vader is involved in this book, and what makes this book so great is the way that James Luceno is able to write the other Jedi that survive, the clones that help them survive. You get to see Commander Appo, and you get to see Vader hunting down those Jedi, and I just think it's such a well-written story, and that's why it goes at number 24. At number 23, we have Tatooine Ghost by Troy Denning. This was a recent read, a shocking read because it's delightful. This is set, right before the events of, the original Thrawn trilogy, but it has connections to the prequels. And what it primarily does is it kind of shows you through some, not flashbacks, but through some data pads, what happened to Shmi Skywalker. That part of the book alone is worth the price of the book. That elevates it so much. The rest of the story is good, but the Shmi Skywalker stuff in this book that kind of connects to the Attack of the Clones novelization is just some top-tier storytelling. My number 22 is going to be Red Harvest by Joe Schreiber. This is another horror novel by Joe Schreiber. This one's set in the Old Republic timeline. There's like no familiar characters here, and yet I still think this is a tremendous, dark, scary book, and I think that it's even better than his book Death Troopers. So I loved Red Harvest. That's my number 22. My number 21 is the third book in the Han Solo A.C. Crispin trilogy. It's been a while since we talked about that trilogy, but I really liked Rebel Dawn. This is the one that is the most Star Wars-y of the trilogy, the one that connects most to the movies and connects to what we understand of Han Solo. But I think that A.C. Crispin did a great job showing him becoming more than just a smuggler in this book. And I think that Rebel Dawn is a great, great book. We're to my number 20. Number 20 on the list is going to be Star Wars Maul Lockdown. This is a book that I did not expect to love, but I was reading it. I was like, oh my word, this book does some things I love. It's kind of dark, it's action, it's brutal, but man, the type of story it tells of Darth Maul kind of getting inside this prison to try to break someone out and deal with some stuff is just so cool. And I thought that Joe Schreiber just writes some great action sequences that I loved. And this book serves as a great parallel to John Jackson Miller's Kenobi, which we'll talk about later. But yes, this book is great. That's number 20. My number 19 is going to be The Unifying Force by James Luceno. He had a tall order to land the plane, to land the fish with the New Jedi Order, and man, he does it because this book is so epic. This book has a singular moment, as it was Sonoma Sakat and Coruscant, that is, in my opinion, one of the best visual moments in all of Star Wars written in a book. Like, the impressiveness of what he did with that moment is just incredible. And the rest of the book's great too, but that moment just really sticks with me. But I loved The Unifying Force. When it says the explosive conclusion, it really is an explosive conclusion. It's huge and epic, and I loved it. Then we have, at number 18, we have Darth Bane, Path of Destruction. There's probably some people screaming that I'm putting it book too early and too low on the list. But I think I reread it. I'm not a dark side person by nature. I don't like reading about the dark side as much, except for maybe Palpatine. But even then, I don't love it. So this book was too dark for me the first time I read it. The second time I read it, I was impressed by it. And I think it's so well done. It's not a favorite of mine, but it's so well done. And I respect what Drew Karpyshyn did with this book. So that's my number 18. All right. I have another, what the heck? What are you doing rating this so high? And I know, but I loved it. And that's Balance Point. I know that everybody else, they're like, this is the weakest of the hardcovers for the New Jedi Order. This is one of the weaker New Jedi Order books in general. I loved it because the Luke and Mara storyline in this book is the best we'll ever get of Luke and Mara. It's no one's going to top it. I think that their dynamic in this book is the best. And I really liked the stuff with Jason and Anakin in this book. I also really liked the stuff with Han and Leia in this book. I really liked this book. And no one can tell me otherwise. I'm sure you will tell me in the comment section. That was my number 17. My number 16 is going to be Darth Maul Shadowhunter. And this book is such a fast-paced, short, quick, just great book. It's very much feels like the prequels. It feels like Phantom Menace. The way that you just have Darth Maul as the monster, and it's a monster book about the monster killing off our characters, and you're wondering who's going to be the final girl, as it were. Oh, it's so well done. Michael Reeves, he just nails the premise with this book, and I thought that this is just an incredible, incredible Star Wars novel, and I loved it so much. And that's why Darth Maul Shadowhunter is my Darth Maul Shadowhunter is going to be my number 16. My number 15 is going to be X-Wing Wedge's Gamble by Michael A. Stackpole. This was when the X-Wing series is hitting its heights. The X-Wing pilots are kind of having to infiltrate Coruscant in this book, and I think they do a tremendous job of it. I loved the storyline of getting into Coruscant. I loved the action sequences here. I think that this was when Michael Stackpole was really understanding where he needed the series to go. And this is just a tremendous book. So this is my number 15. My number 14 is one of the most literary Star Wars books out there, and that's Darth Plagueis, or Plagueis, or Plagius. If you watch an old video I did, one of my first videos I did, I pronounced Darth Plagueis' name wrong in it, and so it's a running joke that I always will pronounce it wrong. But yes, Darth Plagueis is a great book, and I was expecting it to go one direction, and he zigs and zags, and whoa, my goodness, I didn't know you could do that in Star Wars, and it's dark. Whoo, is this a dark book? But it is such a good book, and this is James Luceno really proving why he's in the upper pantheon of Star Wars authors. That was my number, where am I at? 14. So my number 13. Some of these are so good. I can't believe that this is that low, because it's such a good book, is going to be Rebel Dream by Aaron Alston. This is like an epic World War II movie in Star Wars form. This is Aaron Alston really getting to use his military the best he ever uses it in Star Wars. I think that this is Aaron Alston's best Star Wars novel, personally, and I just loved Rebel Dream. I loved the military sequences. I loved seeing the rebellion forming as the New Republic is crumbling. They reform the New Rebellion, and I just love that in this book. And so Rebel Dream was a great, great, great read. Next we have my number 12 and my number 11, which are going to go together, which is going to be Spectre of the Past and Vision of the Future. Now, as a duology, this is actually my favorite series for Star Wars, but as individual books, they're a bit lower, and so they're at number 12 and 11. But the way that Timothy Zahn writes in these books, I love. He writes the Luke and Mara dynamic a way that just no one else would be able to. And the way that, especially in Vision of the Future, their storyline in here I loved. In both books, you have this kind of triumvirate of villains that's great. You have Han and Leia looking at the Kamasi scandal that's happening. I love all of that stuff, all the Bothan stuff. Oh, give me all of it. Timothy Zahn, one of the best Star Wars writers. This duology is reason why, and it's so good. And so that's why this is my number 12 and my number 11. We have reached the top 10. 147 books have led to this. The top 10 Star Wars novels in the EU ranking by me. These are, again, as I mentioned, my top 10. You may have a different top 10. But I'm so excited to talk about these because I love these books so much. And something had to be in the top 10, so if you felt like it should have been one of the others, again, let me know what your ranking would be. But let's go to my top 10. My number 10 is going to be Fate of the Jedi Apocalypse, one of the biggest, most epic books out there for Star Wars. Troy Denning nailed the ending with this book. It was daunting, and it was awesome, and it was so well done, and I loved the way he wrapped up the whole Fate of the Jedi series. I thought that he did an amazing job here, and I'm so sad that we don't get more. But at the same time, it's such a good ending that I'm also totally okay with where he ended it here. I loved Apocalypse that much. It was so good. It and another book from the Fate of the Jedi are leagues above the others. If you're reading through the Fate of the Jedi books, you're like, man, these are just good. They're not amazing. Wait till you get to the last two. This is the last one. This penultimate one is also on my top 10. It's so good. My number 9 EU novel is going to be The Edge of Victory: Conquest by Greg Keyes. This book stands head and shoulders above the other New Jedi Order books because this is Greg Keyes writing what is essentially a Young Jedi Knights book where Anakin is the main character. We got adventures featuring Jason and Jaina. We did not get many adventures where Anakin Solo is the main character, and Anakin takes the lead here, and it's one of the best Star Wars books. It's short, but man, he makes use of the page count here. If you had announced that Greg Keyes was getting to write like a 10-book series like Kevin J. Anderson and Rebecca Mesta did for the Young Jedi Knights, but instead he's doing it about Anakin, I would have read it because it would have been that good. So that's why Conquest is my number 9 Star Wars novel. My number 8 is going to be Star Wars Han Solo: The Paradise Snare. This is one of the best Han Solo stories. It's very much Han Solo mixed with Indiana Jones, the way this book explores religion, the way this book explores romance for Han, the way that this book explores his piloting skills. It's just such a delightful book. This is how you write Han Solo. His origin story is heartbreaking in this book. It's so well done on every level. And that's why this is my number 8. My number 7 is going to be the third book in the Thrawn trilogy, and that's going to be The Last Command. Timothy Zahn knows how to write epic books, and The Last Command is an epic conclusion. He really nails the ending. I just think he does better in the first 2 books. But man, this is such a great book. I love just about everything about it. This book really makes me so happy every time I reread it because it's just so well done. It was so artistically done. It was so artistically done. If you know, you know. My number 6 Star Wars novel is going to be the best X-Wing book, which is The Krytos Trap. This is a book that sticks with me because of the trial sequences of the whole the sequence of another character who is captured in this book by the Empire, the whole action sequence towards the end. Oh my goodness, the visuals of the ending sequence are just spectacular, and I loved The Krytos Trap so much. It's such a great book, and I love it so much. That's why it's my number 6. We're to my top 5! Finally, my top 5 Star Wars Expanded Universe novels. And my number 5 is going to be Dark Force Rising by Timothy Zahn. This is a great sequel to The Heir to the Empire. You get to see some really cool stuff with Han and with Garm Bel Iblis. You get to see some really cool stuff with Leia and the stuff with the Nogri. You get to see stuff with some great sequences with Grand Admiral Thrawn in here. The fleet, the Dark Force Rising is so good here. The ending sequence is so great. Timothy Zahn just knows how to write Star Wars, and this book is superb, and that's why it's my number 5. My number 4, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people, and you're probably like, I can't remember what's next. It's Ascension by Christie Golden. I freaking loved this book. Christie Golden just writes romance a way I love it. The way that she writes the dark side, the way that she writes politics, the way that she writes Korriban, the way that she writes Coruscant, the way she writes the Lost Tribe and Ben and Vistara Kai, and this is them giving Christie her most to do in this book, and it is epic. It is the best Fate of the Jedi book. It is the 4th best Star Wars EU book, and it is way underrated, and I loved it. So that's why this is my number 4 Star Wars Expanded Universe book. If you're doing the math, you might be able to figure out what the top 3 are. My number 3 Expanded Universe book is going to be like, everybody loves this book. It's kind of a cliche to put it this high, but it's Heir to the Empire. I mean, this is the book that jump-started the EU as we know it. We had the 7 classic books with Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and you had the Han Solo trilogy and the Lando trilogy, and I guess 3 more books if you count the novelizations. But this was the book that started the EU as we experienced it. It is the book that really kickstarted everything. It's amazing. The sequence with Thrawn in the first chapter is amazing. The way that he writes the character of Pelion, the way that he writes Luke and him dealing with stuff with the loss of Ben in this book, the way that you have the politics with Borsk Falia is great. I mean, everything about this book is top tier. And Timothy Zahn yet once again proves why he is one of the best Star Wars writers. By the way, I'm going to take a moment to say, a lot of these writers have written stuff outside of Star Wars that are great. Timothy Zahn, his science fiction novels are magnificent. Michael Stackpole, his fantasy novels are magnificent. Christie Golden, her Star Trek novels are great. So if you like some of these authors for Star Wars, give a chance to their non-Star Wars works. Now, my number 2 is going to be a standalone. It's kind of part of a duology. It's kind of standalone. We call it a standalone. And I just reread this with some friends, and it was just as delightful on reread. And that's going to be Star Wars Outbound Flight by Timothy Zahn. This is a book in his only prequel era book, and man, does he write such an awesome book. It's a huge undertaking, and there's so much in this book that I forgot about when I reread it, but it's so well done. The way that it deals with the Jedi and the Chiss, and it deals with strategy, and the way that it deals with the Force, and the role that the Jedi have in the universe, and the way that it deals with the Jedi going mad, and a Jedi trying to step over other Jedi and figure out what their place in the universe is. It's just such a great book, and he leaves it all on the field with this book. And I think the mystery in this book is better than its counterpart in Survivor's Quest. But I loved Outbound Flight so much that it's my number 2 Star Wars EU novel. When I say my number 1, everyone's going to be like, oh yeah, you love that book. You talk about it all the time. It's not only my favorite Star Wars Expanded Universe novel, but it's in contention for one of my favorite novels of all time, period. This book I put up there, I put in my top 10 novels of all time list, and it deserves to be there, because it's that good a book. It's my favorite Star Wars novel, not just for the EU. I would put this above any of the canon books too. I'd put this above any science fiction book I've ever read too. It's just that good a book. And it's not as epic a book as you would expect. And that is going to be Star Wars Kenobi by John Jackson Miller. Yes, John Jackson Miller writes in this book a much smaller scale, a much quieter Star Wars novel, in which case he decides to turn it into a Western, which now we've seen done to death with The Mandalorian and with the Book of Boba Fett. but at the time it was very radical. And Obi-Wan's in the book, and the Lars are kind of in the book, but other than that, it's all original characters. And it's getting to see Annalene Caldwell and her children and Oren Galt and trying to figure out who is this mysterious guy Ben, and what does he want with us, and what are his powers, and what's going on with him. And you just feel for Ben that he has to be alone on the planet by himself, and he doesn't have any other Jedi surrounding him. And this book asks what all of John Jackson Miller's books do. What do the Jedi do when they're alone? And it's a beautiful book. This is a book that every time I read it, I love it even more. I've read it like 5 or 6 times now, and I love it every time. And I get so emotional reading this book. And I think that John Jackson Miller just hit one out of the park. It won the Scribe Award for the best novel the year it came out, and it earned it. It's such a well-done book. I love Kenobi so much. Find you someone that loves you the way I love Kenobi, the novel. So, this is my #1 Star Wars novel, and my #1 Expanded Universe book. And we have completed my entire Expanded Universe ranking. Oh my goodness, I don't think you can see here, but I have 157 books just piled up that I've been throwing on the floor. Not the way you should treat your books, but this has been a long video. If you stayed with me to here, I applaud you. I applaud you for sticking around. And if you only skipped ahead to find out what my top books were, I applaud you as well, because I understand it's a lot of video to watch. But that is my ranking of every single Star Wars adult novel in the Expanded Universe. If you have your own ranking, let me know. If you've read all 157, congrats! Let's do a ranking with me in the comments section. And if you've not read all of them, let me know of the ones you've read, what you would rank. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.